start.
Greetings. Welcome to Wake the Dead. We have a swapcast with our good friend, Dr. Hans Utter, with his show, The Resonant State. Welcome, Hans. Say hello and tell us, who do we have here speaking with us today?
Good question. It sounds like a Zen Cohen. I'm. I didn't quite follow your question. We have William Ramsey.
Yes.
You're talking about me. Okay, so I am.
Well, I said it would for you to say hello and then to introduce our guests here, sure. William Ramsey. So both of you can say hello.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to be here. This is a joint podcast between Resonant State and Wake the Dead. And so we're joined again by William Ramsey, who's been doing very detailed research on this film and book. And the book, as William was saying, as I did go through the book after this thing started, even though people are aware of it, I think it has kind of slipped. And as you mentioned, William, it seems to be coming now back into a bit of the zeitgeist, a bit of the discussion. But it is of such importance, right? It's so interesting. And
let's just mention the book real quick. It's a Manchurian Candidate, and by Richard Condon, I guess, is the writer. And the movie again is Manchurian Candidate, produced by the mobster there, in '62, and then taken off the market by the same Frank Sinatra. So this is this movie and film. We can't even say the words on YouTube. We just discovered that. Hans told us that before the show started. So just wanted to put that up there before William says hello. Thank you.
Oh yeah, just to mention that the video was censored from my YouTube channel. It's getting a slow start since 3 of my videos, or 3 of 6, have been censored. But I got the list and I got the detailed explanation, and it says terms of service: you cannot mention either the book or the film Manchurian Candidate. And they had the listing had every single time code where we had mentioned it. So. But they said if you edit that out, you're welcome to re-upload the show. Well, it's not going to be much of a show. It's just going to be a long, censored beep. But I mean, that shows that there is something here that maybe should be. They want to keep a little bit background. And I'll just say one thing before William dives in: is that as I'm working on an article here. Should be coming out in the next month or so for journal, but a lot of the things that were done from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, this is the basic structure and rubric that is still continuing today with some type of modification, but not necessarily that much modification, right? So I'm doing an article on this FM radio stuff, and FM radio served as a network much as the creation of television, internet, and things like that. And so in a way, when something hits the collective consciousness, right? So this Manchurian Candidate is something that's injected or arrives, right? It's discovered, it's pulled out. It has an effect over the whole culture, depending on where you're positioned in that culture. But the Manchurian Candidate had a huge impact over the whole 1950s. There was a lot of discourse, lots of books, lots of, studies. And in fact, this sort of paranoia served as the impetus for all the mind control experimentation done in the United States, right? And so, anyways, William, take it away.
Glad to be with you guys. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be with you. I had great responses from our first show, so this will be the second and the follow-on. And I'd like to just kind of go back into the book. We may have to start using code words, call the book like sunflowers or something. I have to come up with something clever. So we'll go back. But it's incredible, the censorship. And also, like you said, I've noticed certain people talking about the Manchurian Candidate kind of pop back up into the consciousness of people. And I think it's important because it ties in, my studies kind of started, actually, believe it or not, with these assassination attempts on Trump, these kind of strange characters, Crooks and Ruth, and there were other ones that we don't know, and some of these other recent assassinations and some of the trans kind of killings and stuff like that are very strange. So, but I like to just kind of go back, like Condon's important. There's a lot of like Illuminati numbers in his book. We call them occult numerology or something, things that tie into 9/11. But this film had so many important people, and like we mentioned it before, Sinatra, Janet Leigh, some of these other characters. But like Condon put in the 11. So the beginning, if you remember from last show, the troop is captured and taken to Manchuria. There's literally 11 people, or 22 people take 11 bodies, and you'll see it right here, like in this video. This is literally just a cut and paste from the movie. And then they're doing this thing in their schoolhouse. Yenlo inserted in the minds of 11 American. If people who don't know 11, the importance of 11, it's like a master number. Crowley used it. It's the number of magic. So they're implying that this hypnotic process is kind of the implementation of kind of a magical act in a way. I think that's what Condon's implying. And there's like 11s all through this book. And it also at very crucial moments. So you'll see, and I'll play this video here, the crucial moment where, this is it. Raymond's at 11 a.m. He went to bed at 11 o'clock. So this hypno-programmed assassin does things at certain times according to numerology. Here's a 9/11. Like literally 911 names are stricken from the list. So like that's a pretty strange one. This Medal of Honor is this kind of thing that's given this kind of intelligent legend to Raymond Shaw. And we'll see that when we get to Oswald, how much of his past is a legend.
Hey, real quick, sorry. 22 also could be relating to the trumps of the tarot deck and the paths of the trumps on the Kabbalah tree, and with the internal programming of the monarchs, as well as the well, let's just leave it there.
Well, if you don't mind going back to that first slide, because I just wanted to just touch on a few other numbers. If I'm not really an expert on this, but you go down here, 3 company of the 35th Regiment of the 66th Airborne Division. So I think we see some, some other. I don't know if you guys have anything to say about those 3, 5. You got your 3, 6. I don't know if that's it. If any. That just popped out to me. That's another like the 6 or multiples of 6. 3.
Well, the 66 is like the fallen angels. Freeman talked about that a long time ago. Like Route 66 and all that is like the path from Kether to Malkuth, like the falling of the. Yeah, that's what that one like.
Crowley's Liber 66 is basically child sacrifice. You can read that. So all those people who say he's not involved in child sacrifice, read Liber 66.
Right.
They're just gaslighted people. A lot of those followers are. But yeah, so 11 contact. And this is kind of the induction thing, the hypnotism. They talked about 11 hours. The subject's in there for 11 hours. The critical application of deep suggestion was observed during the first 11 hours of immersion when the primary link to all future control was set in. So these are not mistakes. And Condon's frame of reference is impressive. He had classical allusions all through this book. Clytemnestra, these things like people kill their mom and stuff like that, which is how it ends. The book and film ends. But here's also the first scene where Sinatra, not a mobster.
Sorry.
No,
that was just the terms I used earlier.
Apparently, that's why he fell out with JFK at the end there. Is that JFK found out he was heavily involved in the mob, and both of his parents were basically mafia adjacent. And
if you ask Bryce Taylor, he was an enforcer for the cult that did the trauma-based mind control of the monarch slaves. He would beat the women. He was a enforcer, teaching them, to follow orders by beating them to the edge of their life. That's what his job was. Bryce Taylor, Sue Ford is her real name. Thanks for the Memories is the book that she wrote. She talks about that.
I just throw something out there too. Is that I'm sure most people are aware, but like in films, everything the unconscious or subconscious perceives everything. So even you're watching the movie, even the number of cigarettes in there, that book title, the 313, you are perceiving that. And they found that, they call the 25th frame. That's where they kind of usually implant the little, like subliminal or whatever like that.
Right, because our eyes only see 24 per second.
Yeah,
but
so
the
the
25th is, yeah, right.
But they've done studies that even the unconscious or subconscious perceives the 25th frame also. So all this stuff is going in, but in fact, this is done. I mean, we're basically in an ocean of this, right? This stuff has been going on. You have around the time the 50s, subliminal seduction, and all this stuff that was coming out. The depth men at Madison Avenue using techniques akin a bit to mind control, right? The depth men were doing psychological analysis. Of course, this goes back to the disciples of Freud, Anna Freud, and Bernays, etc. But yeah, just to say, so these things are important. It's not just you're nitpicking something in the background. Your mind is perceiving that, and it can have a cumulative effect over time, especially on the subconscious, which makes it more powerful than it's consciously perceived.
Hans just mentioned Freud. That dude was working with subliminals and the programming of putting them into altered states, accessing I guess I can't describe it, but Freud was into that same type of line of information and study that Mengele was doing during World War II, the dissociation and making alters and programming of the alters. Freud was using hypnosis and was influencing the subconscious mind for purposes that we might not know exactly what was going on, what he was really studying, what his true purpose was.
I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that at all.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with Estabrooks.
But Freud also started, it's important to note, he started as a neurophysiologist, similar to Watson and after him Pavlov, right? So this is a different type of conditioning, and one could posit that potentially he was basically doing a more hard science, right? And then suddenly he comes up with these theories and, this whole architecture, superego, this, that. Who knows if that's also not just kind of a smokescreen for what's actually being done.
Exactly. That's what he gives to us. And then he works for the real masters above him, giving them the true information. What we get is the chicken feed. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Not real science. Anyway, go ahead.
It's an interesting term. It's a total intel term, too. Chicken feed is like where you deceive your opponents with fake information.
Yes.
Chicken feed. It's not the real stuff. But yeah, no, it's scary. And Freud's very sophisticated. He's a very sophisticated thinker. So if you read through his books, impressive level of intelligence.
Right.
He actually is going to tie into this presentation. You guys bring up stuff that's so interesting because we're going to talk about Jung, because Jung is tied with Bancroft, who's tied with Dulles. And we were talking the pre-show about Dulles. Dulles is the key figure. We're going to see him as like the puppeteer of this, like a lot of things that went down in the early 60s. And one of the things that's never brought up in the JFK is his involvement, obviously, in the fake, Warren Commission, but that he started MK Ultra. Like you mentioned, I think you mentioned the brain warfare thing. And MK Ultra is right 1 week after that, 1953 is the official stamp. But it's just kind of a watermark. Much like this film.
Yeah. Just one last thing on Freud is that, he introduced things like Thanatos, right? The death drive and the pleasure principle, and the fact that all of your problems are because you're repressing your natural desires, right? So it's, the problem is like, I want to, have this orgiastic sex life, but that's why I'm depressed, because I'm not doing it.
And your natural desire is the beast man that Crowley loved and was put on top of the pedestal, right?
And then you have this
under Mystery Babylon.
Yeah, and below that is desire, the self-destruction urge, or to kill other people. And this is just like your operating system. This is like built into your, whatever, your Windows or your Mac computer, right? That they're saying this is baseline operating system. You can't change it. It's where your computer is wired.
The law of the jungle, right?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's interesting, yeah. Anyway, so you see the clock here, 3:11. So this is like the first scene where he
KKK, right? 311.
Right.
The 11th letter.
Right. So it isn't. These are not mistakes. Just like you guys said, this is not it. And also the telephone behind it's kind of suggestive, is that like the incoming call is coming, you know. So I think the symbolism is accurate.
Also, the telephone is if you look at the image, I know the listeners can't really see, but there's a glass of consumed alcohol where there's a little bit of spirit left in the glass, and that is distorting the phone behind it. So like the influence of some spirit comes through the phone, right? Maybe that's what, I don't know if people get that far into it, but
that's an ectoplasmic photograph, right? Those photographs, seriously, they look at those, whatever, from the 1890s, whatever, the Spiritism movement, that looks like one of the ectoplasms, right? That they have in the pictures.
Right. That the spirit essence that you can capture on camera, like, oh yeah, that's really gross and weird.
I mean, it's interesting that you bring up this telephone. Let me bring up this picture right here, because I'll give a shout out to Austin Picard, because in the Artichoke documents, Artichoke is pre-MK Ultra, they said they could induce the hypnotic trance through the phone, and that's what they were. They actually created like a self-help video before, like in the early 50s, to show spies what you could do with hypnotism. And they literally have the transcript in the Artichoke docs. They don't have the movie. I don't know if the movie's still around, but they're like, here's Bob. He's in here. He decides to call his secretary, who he's pre-programmed, and he programs her through the phone, through induction. And it's really incredible. But that document actually exists from the Artichoke docs. But if you remember, so they're showing you these techniques through the film, is my thing. And if you remember from, I don't know if I mentioned this, but like Sinatra's friends with William Joseph Bryan. He knows this guy. And I mean, remember the name William Joseph Bryan. If we can get to the end of 2 hours and I can get into some of these other characters. He's friends with Belli, who is Jack Ruby's attorney for some strange reason. Belli is really a civil attorney. He switches to specialties and represents Jack Ruby for some reason that nobody can figure out. But
right, we spoke about that in the first episode.
Okay. Yeah, okay, good. Let me see if I don't know where this picture of. I have here he is. So this is Raymond Shaw. This is like one of the first things where he gets triggered, and this is over the phone. Somebody's talking to him over the phone. Do you guys see that?
You didn't. You gotta share it.
Let me stop.
There you go.
There you go. So this is kind of a sequence in this where he gets called and like, hey, you're going to do this. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So this phone is important. This is from the Artichoke documents. It really is real. They figured it out in the early 50s. So we're seeing kind of this actually.
Yeah. So
in real life, like they were portrayed in the film, but it actually is doable in real life.
So with the phenomenon of multiple personalities, there are observer personalities inside that are waiting for triggers, like always watching and listening. And when certain danger or something exposes itself to the victim, that victim takes that stimulus in through their ears or their eyes, and that causes the switch. So this is what's happening on the phone, like the auditory,
comrade, the implications,
the audio message goes in, and the internal processes of the monarch is that causes the switch, just because they are programmed to switch with certain stimuli, being words or the looking at the card of the Queen of Diamonds, which is featured in this film and book. Getting those stimuli through the eyes or the ears or touch, it's all, there's many different ways of triggering the switching of the alter personality. Just wanted to get that in there for people that have never heard of this kind of thing.
Or scent, also smell.
Yes, all the senses. Yes.
And it all goes back to Estabrook. He knew all this stuff in the 30s. This is all established. You can read his books on like hypnosis. It's actually the intro to Dave McGowan's book, Program to Kill, starts with Estabrooks. So he keyed into it. So it's incredible. Like he really got to the crux of like this process in that book.
And he utilized the audio with the psychic driving, when he put his victims, make them fall asleep with this little microphone under their pillow, and it would speak words into their ear, which was featured in 1984, actually, in the fiction of 1984, that actually happened with Ewan Cameron, called it psychic driving, where they would like implant the message into the mind during the dream state, and the hypnagogic in between awake and asleep is very suggestible time of your brain to have those messages put in.
Right. They called his like lab the sleep room. And according to this most recent case that came out, I don't know if you guys listened to that show I did, but like the victims in the sleep room, they would see the doorway and they would shrink back in like total terror and fear of going in there, because he would put him to sleep for 3 months. He's a monster, just like Dulles. We'll get there. It's in my slides. I mean, this is incredible stuff.
Well, yeah. Just one thing is that some of these experimentations, I mean, if you look at some of these different cults operating in the 60s, some of the movements in the 50s, you don't think they're going to be willing just to run an experiment to understand these processes, right? In a individual level, then moving up to a collective level, right? And the first Macy conference, which before was technically the Macy conferences, was on cerebral inhibition. And this is the term for hypnosis, cerebral inhibition. And I may have mentioned this the last show, but the initial, we started in the 40s and stuff. A lot of this, they start working directly with the brain. Before that, the brain is sort of almost no one's really trying to work directly on the brain. It's almost like don't touch, also don't go into it, right? But the thing that is, for one of the first things that was discovered with these inductions of altered states through, like, say, flicker, especially using flicker, types of auditory driving, etc., was that the hypnotic state, the person's brain will be operating normally. They can be in a hypnotic trance, go through all their day-to-day activity, talk normally, speak normally, act normally, and have no idea they are under hypnosis. And this is really of central importance, because we have the present, obviously, the guy gets the trigger, he's going to go out, I will kill somebody, right? But the fact is that you can be in a permanent, semi-permanent hypnotic state, and this can be induced and will not be recognizable to the person, and will also not even be recognizable externally, except for the person who has induced that state. So that gives really a great degree of power.
You guys are beating me to my stuff, man. This is it. Anyway,
I can't wait to talk about Mengele.
Okay,
go ahead, please.
I'm just trying to show that Condon knew a lot of this kind of secret society stuff. 311 here.
Right.
And then we go into this sequence. I think this is one of the other more important sequences in the film, which is the one where Raymond Shaw goes into the bar.
This nation
jealously guards its highest award. So this is the intro 77. I actually researched this, and I know this is made up information. He puts the 77 in here.
But for valor, the Congressional Medal of Honor. In the Korean War, with 5,720,000 personnel engaged, only 77 men were so honored.
So Raymond Shaw is one of 77. So 77 is like Babylon, and the beast conjoined is like the numbers together. The Star of Babylon, 77. 77 names of Satan. Not good. So this is the sequence I'm talking about. He goes into a bar. And
when I get married to my old lady, I got no idea that this guy comes in the same package, that it's a package deal, and for 11 long years,
that it's a package deal, and for 11 long years, right?
That
and
it's
then
a
the Queen
package
comes.
deal, and for 11 long years, I got this crumb tied around my neck. And believe me, it's no bargain. You've got no idea what kind of a problem I got with this guy.
Sorry I'm late, kid. Got held up in traffic,
Again. So I says to him, please do me a favor, will you? Why
So the 11's there, then the Queen comes, and then here comes this suggestion.
don't you go and take yourself a cab and go up to Central Park and go jump in the lake?
It's so weird, too, because it overlaps with Catcher in the Rye, which really Central Park is really this central area. And then Mangione travels from Oahu and then kills somebody and drives his bike into Central Park. They find it at the carousel. You can't write this stuff. It's so crazy. Here's the one of the greatest villains of all time talking about the number 11.
Raymond, I don't know why yours is the only apartment in New York City without an air conditioner. You know, sometimes I think you came to us for another century. Chu Chin Chow, or whatever your name is. The steaks are to be broiled for exactly 11 minutes, no more, no less, on each side in a preheated grill at 400 degrees.
Yes.
So more 11s.
The one more thing about 77 is that's Oz, and book 77 of Crowley is Liber Oz, and O and Z is 77 gematria, and it's the number of the magician. It's like 2 sevens, not 3.
Comrade,
Right. It's like it's Liber Oz, is it Liber 77, which is
Right.
there's no God but man, right? And anybody who messes with you, you have it's within your rights to kill them. Like
Right.
that's how it ends.
And
Like
the slave
right
shall
man.
serve,
Yeah,
right?
the
That
slave
too.
shall serve. So a little quote from the Book of the Law in there too. Okay, this is kind of like this is a recap. This is kind of just showing the power and what Yen Lo is a handler, right? So he's handling them and conditioning them in Manchuria. Then he comes to New York City, and this is like in some like other sanatorium. This is like in the book, it's a sanitarium externally, but internally they have a little something aside where they can keep their subjects. And you'll see this played out in real life where these guys like Chapman is working at a hospital. Shaw, and one of the key components of the Garrison criminal case against Shaw was identifying Oswald with Ferry and Shaw. And one of the main identifications was Shaw and Ferry taking Oswald to a state hospital in Clinton to try to get him a job there. They're taking this guy who's very suspicious, and he's clearly a patsy, but is there more to the story? And a lot of people have asked that question about Oswald. Has he been tampered with like Raymond Shaw? And I think it's a valid question. But let's just recap this. This is interesting.
Do you realize, comrade, the implications of the weapon that has been placed at your disposal?
So this is a great insight. Like he's calling him a weapon. It's not like somebody's tampered. And this will play out with all these Manchurian candidates.
You may remove your head bandage, Raymond. Normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill and then to have no memory of having killed. Without
total amnesia, just like Sirhan.
Memory of his deed, he cannot possibly feel guilt. Nor will he, of course, have any reason to fear being caught.
No fear of being caught. These guys do weird stuff. They just sit down, they walk around. Chapman sat down, started reading Catcher in the Rye.
And having been relieved of those uniquely American symptoms, guilt and fear, he cannot possibly give himself away. Now Raymond will remain an outwardly normal, productive, sober, and respected member of the community. And I should say, if properly used, entirely police-proof. His brain has not only been washed, as they say, it has been dry cleaned.
It's sinister.
I just wanted to say that if people know about sleepers and Manchurian there's this gentleman named Russ Dizdar who did a lot of work looking deeply into the dark occult mind control of the exact phenomenon of MK Ultra style multiple personality trauma-based mind control victims. He would see them switch into demonic altars and try to kill him. I mean, he was in the trenches with these people, if you call them that. And he wrote a book called The Black Awakening. And he would hear from this, these are people that it's like 3 or 4 generations. They've been generationally programmed this way, starting with Mengele and the Nazis. That's what Russ stresses. But I mean, he knows that it does go back to ancient Babylon, but it really got scientific when it was happening during the World War II, when they had all these victims to test on, all these people in concentration camps and such. So these generations of people are still being programmed in this way, this trauma-based mind control. And like the gentleman said in the film, they're totally undetectable, and they don't know, and you don't know, and then they can just pop out into total violence when they receive this trigger. Okay, and Russ has heard from the cult themselves, this cult of the Black Flame, and these demonic altars have explained to him how there are like millions of sleepers that don't know they're programmed, that are out there just waiting for the signal. And once that happens, then it's going to be ultra violence, if you will, everywhere. And then there will be this one leader that the whole world will be like, please help us. And he will unite the world into a one world system by stopping this craziness of this crazy violence that just happens. And we see now in the news, we see people on trains getting stabbed in the neck.
Oh yeah. I just want, I want to, sorry to interrupt you, Sean, but just to say that, this type of encoding, there's a lot of different levels and levels of depth and levels of susceptibility. And not only does it have to be necessarily, you can have a media, someone can see something on the television, an advertisement that will trigger like a stabbing, right? You can have these things randomly triggered, but also frequency.
Batman movie,
frequencies. Spectrums, right? So they, using types of infrasound or other types of things. There's like neighborhoods. There was a neighborhood near me, and everybody, it was a black neighborhood, and there was some kind of weird resonance frequency. People were walking around like zombies, and I mean, literally saw that, and I've seen other instances of that. And you can actually, if you look at some of these riots and some of these other types of things, where suddenly people are just going nuts. So a combination of symbolic interactions, some kind of sign, some type of input, and then also a frequency state that if you're not resisting it will generate some type of intense emotion, right? And based on the work that was done, this is also not an individualized process. This is can be a collective process, a collective contagion, a morphogenic field, so to speak.
Those that are like totally programmed, like the Britney Spearses of them all, those ones will be leading the charge and grabbing the bricks that are left there and pallets, like, and throwing them at the buildings, inspiring all the other people that aren't programmed directly to go follow that, and so they can lead this chaos. And that's more problem reaction solution, and it seems obvious, but sometimes these programmed multiples are like slipping out and they get triggered early, and it's not a precise type of process. But I think when the way that everything is based on like the biblical, end times crap and all that, those types of like dog whistles are out there to these programmed people. And I think that the more that is pushed, and the more that like Israel does their thing, and the more they act like, we're gonna burn the heifers and like all this, I think that is like triggering people, and I think that it's like coming to a crescendo. I'm not sure what the signal will be. I mean, Russ didn't know either, but they own the radio waves, they own the television, they basically own the internet, like the evil cult that runs the world. So all they have to do is just start this craziness, and so I don't know if people should look into Black Awakening, and but the phenomenon of programmed multiples that everybody can see in the world, these poor women and men that are like remembering these awful memories of the programming and the trauma, like they are experiencing real phenomenon, and they are speaking true, like they're speaking the truth, and we have to listen to them to understand what is actually going on. This is like some people think that Russ is crazy for listening to these people that act like demons, telling them about this plan, but it makes sense, and we see it today, and we see Bill Clinton go blank, like in the first show. These people are programmed multiples, and it makes sense that they have some that are programmed for violence out there. And I spoke with Carrie Olahe, talked about how she had programming inside her to hunt down and track and kill all the people that tried to escape from the New World Society that they are building. I mean, there are actual like programs and like actual plans in their heads. So be aware. I just wanted to put that out there for people to know about.
Before, I know we're taking over, man. We're the most talkative hosts ever.
Cool.
You
Sorry,
got me.
William, sorry.
Sean kept apologizing to me for talking too much, and now I've started talking too much. Man, what have you done? But anyways, no. But one thing I think it's important to recognize, as I mentioned, that kind of hypnotic trance can be almost like a gauze, right? It's a very light film. So I'm just hypothesizing that you don't necessarily even need, like, I think that the DC Sniper is a great example, right? Of someone that's a great story, the whole DC Sniper case. But with all of these random acts of violence, I would just speculate that could even just be a light touch programming, that all you need, low impulse control, and something will just trigger an act of violence, right? And then it gets reinforced, say through playing a video game, say through listening to hip hop, say through whatever, right? And so it doesn't have to even be
TV with all the violence all the time.
So it doesn't even have to be a multiple. You could look at these as just sort of free agents, like random little chaos, like a little fire popping up, right? So this maybe like that subway, that subway stabbing just could have been someone with just a very light degree. They just, boom, it pops out, and these could be happening all over the place randomly, which it creates fear, destabilization over the whole society.
Well,
so it has a tremendous ripple effect.
That's the intent of the Black Awakening. It'll cause such anxiety that we will plead for a ruler, a one
It's
world
happening.
ruler. Yeah.
It's happening. People have called it Gladio, or they've called it something. I call it collective psychic driving. I think you use that word collective. I think it's interesting because going back to Dulles, which we're going to get to in these slides, is his brain warfare speech on April 10th, 1953, where he says the target of this brain warfare is the minds of men, both on a collective and on an individual basis. So you have to think how he's thinking. So the average person's thinking, they're just going after individuals. He puts collective before individual. He's thinking about the society. The aim is to condition the mind so that it no longer reacts on a free will or rational basis. The intent is to take away your free will and rationality, but responds to impulses implanted from outside. If we are to counter this kind of warfare, we must understand the techniques the Soviet is adopting to control men's minds. Crazy.
So this is
that's right at the end of the Korean War too.
So this is cybernetics, right? Like to control through stimulus and
your
feedback
mic your mic level's gone down for me. Do you notice that?
I'm sorry. I will. I thought
is this mic level lower? Or is
it is lower. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Here, I'll fix that. I apologize.
You sounded like Barry White. Barry White.
Is this better here? Is this okay?
I don't know. I just noticed it go down because your mic level's lower than Hans's.
Okay.
And it should automatically change it, but I don't know.
I've got automatically adjust mic clicks.
That's always a good thing not to use.
I try to make it so that we're all on the same level, so that nobody's later
you're definitely lower than me right now. Maybe I'll turn my mic up. I don't know.
Here,
I will. Volume up.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. So that's it. I mean, it overlaps with this Ewan Cameron case and this discussion of Manchurian candidates, and it goes all the way to the present. I don't know if people know. I don't know if you guys followed this, but this Jay Taney versus McGill University case is really incredible. And I did 3-part. I read it out in my podcast, so people check that out because it's all there, and it involves Ewan Cameron, who we're going to see in these slides, who's friends with Dulles from the very beginning. Ewan Cameron is a close friend of Dulles. They're connected all the way back to World War II.
Yeah, there's I'm familiar with some of the first cases that came out. I'm not familiar with the newest one, but I mean there's one lady I remember. She went in for postpartum depression. Yeah. She came out everything erased. just
Yeah.
blank. I mean, it's really, it's unbelievable that this.
They were so freaking sinister. The people who went in didn't even know they were given amnesia. This is the whole thing. The importance of what I just showed of Yen Lo, this weaponization and the amnesia. They didn't know what happened. That's why these cases didn't proceed, because these people are messed up. And they were, according to Elizabeth Nixon, who's part of these suits, they were trying to make Stepford wives. Like, they went after the elite of Montreal for some strange reason. They weren't going for like rank and file disposable people in Montreal. But she said her mom had an altar and that she would literally bug out for 5 days. And she didn't know what was happening. So the effect on the family just thinks like, oh, it's part of the thing. They were giving her hardcore treatment, and the electroshock convulsive therapy would literally stop these people from breathing. Like, that's how powerful. It was 20 or 100 times more than what they used to use. And it's in this new lawsuit. This new lawsuit is absolutely incredible because it's a very long document. It's about 200 pages, but they have all of those cases and all of the files and all of the exhibits are in there. So it's like a repository of everything up to literally late July of 2025. They've got it down, man. It's incredible. And they sued the AG. I guess the U.S. weaseled out of it on state secrets or state sovereignty baloney, but they literally sued Pam Bondi, the AG, the Attorney General of the United States. Anyway, so it ties into this, Cameron, but this is all goes into, it's the MK element of the JFK is left out, and Ferry's knowledge of hypnosis, and I mean, we'll get there. You have to remember that William Joseph Bryant is the consultant on Manchurian Candidate. This is
I like some legal representation. These police officers have not allowed me to. Back up. Where you up, man?
Anyway, he says he's a patsy. Let me see if I can find the audio for it. Anyway, this is Oswald. Oswald is like, literally was at
9-9
where they literally is a after Frank Olson. If people know the story of Frank Olson, he was one of the early kind of suspicious deaths around MK Ultra. He was kind of a whistleblower and seemed to have a conscience, and he was thrown out of a window. I mean, they say he jumped. I mean, it was one of the many suicides, so-called suicide, much like the Mohrenschildt, who clearly to me wasn't suicide, who was a handler of Oswald. But it was one of the early deaths. And when he died, they said they put a halt to LSD experimentation. There's actually a file and a notation from Dulles to Atsugi Airport to stall LSD experimentation there. Okay, so I don't know. Some of the volume's going around strange. Anyway, so this is known stuff. Where does Oswald show up before he goes to the Soviet Union at Atsugi? And there's connections to like a lot of strange people there, allegedly, of like Gottlieb, who worked directly under Dulles and stuff like that to Atsugi. And one of the things that's interesting about the Montreal cases is that Ewan Cameron, who's friends with Dulles and knows Dulles, and Ewan Cameron literally interrogated Hess, who was the number 3 Nazi in Germany. He's in the paperwork, but Ewan Cameron was always an American citizen, so they offshored a lot of their research into Canada and other places, so they wouldn't get busted. So it was a way to like wash stuff. Kind of like what they do. Oswald. This is a remarkable picture right here. This is literally a real picture, and it says, "Bing, you are hypnotized." It says Janet Boland and Oswald at the old bio lab.
Wow,
isn't that crazy?
And look at that. What is that? Like a rat or a monkey? I mean, it's like that's like this out. And that even that gesture, like you've got that. That looks like a stage photo. So you wonder. I mean,
can you hear me now?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Yeah, that's a bizarre photograph, right? So these are things, this looks like a stage photograph, right?
Classic StreamYard.
It's working.
Lose the connection. I don't even know why I pay for this dumb program.
It does suck. It's working. I don't know why you're not hearing.
Can you hear us?
Check William.
We see you, William. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Anyway, I'm supposed to be able to hear you, but I can't. Let me put it on my speaker.
Sorry. That so it like we do hear you, William. It happens a lot. StreamYard's too expensive.
Can you hear me now? Say something.
Yes, we
Blah,
know we
blah,
can't.
blah.
You're
It's
there.
not even coming through. You guys are going to have to talk. So I'm
Okay.
going to
Okay.
restart my computer and come back on.
Okay, so we'll just keep going. So
If you look at the posture of that woman pointing, she is doing like the Crowley posture in that image where he's like putting his finger up, the scratching at the darkness or whatever.
yeah, and the right hand, left
Yeah.
hand down, aligned with that skeleton skull of some animal. You know, so there's so much. I mean,
You are hypnotized. Like, wow.
yeah, you know, and I do think again, people do not really understand what hypnosis is, right? I mean,
Right.
you know, you think the person, walking on coals or thinking they're a bird or whatever. That's really a very small part of it, because it's, you, in a sense, you could look at, again, this mass hypnotic trance induction on at least one level, right?
Right.
What was COVID? That was a mass hypnotic
Right.
trance induction. People are still wearing masks, man.
Yeah.
People are still worried about that. I mean, that's a really, you gotta almost feel some compassion for people
Yeah.
that are still caught in that. I mean, how are
Well,
they living?
It's a result of the trauma, right? So the trauma breaks the brain, changes it, and makes it so you're blind to yourself. So just like circumcision, like it causes dissociation to be the the default mode, and then when the dissociation happens, the programming can happen, and they can do what they want with your body. It's it's a trigger that's natural in the mind that they have evaluate, or they've found a way to exploit, and this is the whole process, is the trauma. The trauma causes the hypnosis, I think, causes the dissociative blankness where everything can be programmed in. That's why they were working so much with Mengele, and Ewan Cameron doing his thing there was offshore, just like they do with Guantanamo now. But Hitler was working for our guys too, or it wasn't our guy, but the evil cult that was running Wall Street and all that. Look at the books, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler.
Anthony Sutton.
Sutton, yeah. So like people can see that is evident as that Hitler was just doing orders. He was just doing what he's told, trying to do the problem for the reaction. Hello, William. Welcome.
I made it back.
Can you hear us?
Very well. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Is
Okay.
my volume okay?
It sounds better now to me.
All right. Good. Because it like automatically undid the automatic adjust. I try to do automatically adjust so the computer figures out how much it's supposed to be. Anyway.
Just on one caveat, I'd say, Sean, as I would just finish what we're saying, is that with the collective stuff, I don't think it's all necessarily trauma based. A lot of this is based on consensus reality, right? Believing in this. I believe in the medical system. I believe in these authorities. I believe in my position, and I believe, you know what I mean? And I'm going to fight for that because you're attached to it, and it gives you a normalcy. You're part of the tribe.
That, but so that was the new normal they imposed on us after the trauma of be afraid, stay home, let your grandma die, all that shit, where, you can't even hug your mom. And that's trauma. That's what and that is what the trigger, that where the next step is they can shovel in all that, trust the science.
That's Milgram, right? That's Milgram, obedience to authority.
Yeah.
That's straight Milgram.
Right.
Top to bottom.
It's also Ash experiment too, which is everybody else thinks that line is shorter than the other one, so I do too, right?
Oh, right.
Ash.
Solomon
Milgram.
Ash. Yeah, yes.
The rumor is Milgram was financed through funds from the CIA from MK Ultra to conduct those experiments.
Of course, it's all one big thing. It's dude,
it's massive. MK Ultra was massive. It was like the freaking, Manhattan Project. They're
It's
not
the new
screwing
government,
around.
right? It's the real government underneath. Yeah, yeah. That's what the deep state,
No,
where they get
all
their
this
control.
stuff, Sean, is so important around Manchurian Candidate because it's like the precursor to everything that happened leading up to COVID too.
Exactly. Yes.
And
The era of
leaders,
the crowned and conquering child, right? The new Aeon.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Anacorus. Welcome to the jungle. This is incredible. This is an incredible picture, man. This guy, 1957. He's special. There's something about Oswald, dead at 24. And he's been he has connections to so many important intel people that it's just astonishing. Like James Jesus Angleton had his 201 file. This is Jefferson Morley in The Ghost. Like he literally had a special file on Oswald from like very beginning that he kept and never divulged to anybody else. So
And notice odd thing is that she's pointing with her left hand, right? Left finger, not right finger, right? It's a left hand, and right hand gesture. So this is a stage photograph for sure. Look at it was set up, right? It wasn't just, it looks like, oh, let's just catch this cute thing. You're hypnotized in the old bio lab. Man, this poor guy.
It's an incredible picture,
Yeah.
dude. Like when I saw this on social media, it's Traces of Texas. I was just like, wow, because he was in like you see Raymond Shaw in the hospital. He was in the hospital for a venereal disease. Who goes to the hospital for stays for the venereal disease? And you'll see this repeated with all these Manchurian candidates. They go into hospital stays for way weird times. That's why you have to read this. We have to do another show, or somebody has to talk to me about this Jay Taney case, because they show Cameron adapting this technique. He's not just testing the same thing. He's refining the process of mind control, and they show it. He's like, okay, we've got this thing down. Now we can do more hypnotism with drugs. Now we can sleep and then drug and then hypnotize and then induce. And then we do this. And you realize MK Ultra is the research part, guys. It's the research. It's not the operational part. The operational part you'll never see because it's, and they actually mentioned
that's MK Delta.
Yeah, they mention secrecy and classification in this this Jay Taney court case. So that's very important. They keyed into like all this stuff is freaking secret, and all these bastards have top secret immunity and top secret clearance. So the public will never know. So when like Helm said he burned all the records, they learned everything by 73 or whatever. They didn't need them anymore. They figured it out. They cracked open the brain. Like they figured it out. Why do we need? That's just for. It's just bull. It's slop for the dumb public. Like, come on, man.
And what did we get? It was just a bunch of financial records, payments and shit. We didn't even get any of the real stuff.
Yeah. And so, then actually it's like, once you don't need to look at the research documents, how to build a car engine, right? That you build, the car engines are built. So you don't need to go back. So once your car engine is in production, it's like, once these things are operational and devised into programs, and I would posit potentially that these programs can be segmented, that one person can be doing a certain role, implementing a certain thing, and maybe not even be aware of the whole synergy, right? Of this. So I think these things could be deployed across even multiple institutions, public school, psychiatrist, hospital, so
look rings at these within people. Rings. And you got people, Satanists are placed in everywhere. You got them in the school board, you got them at the library, you got them at the police station, you got them at the hospital, and they're harvesting what they need for their cult. They're getting psychopaths over at the police station. They're getting their blood and their guts and stuff for all their dark rituals at the hospitals. People are placed. It's a hierarchy of obedience, and the LaVeyan Satanists are just like, collecting a bunch of psychopaths for the cult orders that are above, and the rings within rings that we learned from Cecil Rhodes. And, that is the structure of Freemasonry. You got Freemasons, and then the Shriners, and then the Jesters, and the Quetzalcoatl, and it goes on. Like, there's 33 degrees for the Scottish Rite, but there's 99 degrees over there, and like all this other.
Memphis and Mizraim and all that other.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It goes on, and the blood of the victims and the whole. It's levels of mind control. The first level of the interned apprentice is just like, okay, I promise to keep secrets, and that's who they tap from. The people that keep secrets, and the higher up you go, the people they keep better secrets. Like the pedophiles keep secrets better than everybody. They got the most sick desires. They got to keep that a secret. They're not. So it's just the structure of obedience. It's just how power is. Like really. Sorry, I'm kind of.
Dude, it's like Rosemary's Baby. It's like Rosemary's Baby. Like you don't know the doctor's in on it, and all these other people. Like, oh shit.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
This is the thing of like he's forsaken his U.S. citizenship, and it's known, like it's published. So this is when he's 20. He's so young. It's so crazy. And for people who don't know, like he was in CAP. Like I'll show the famous picture of him with David Ferry, a known hypnotist, when he was in 15. So his life and arc from 15 to 24 is just incredible. He's just as important as JFK. I mean, he didn't know he was in the hands of all these people, but as a Manchurian candidate, Patsy, it's an extraordinary existence.
At that time, right? We were in the Cold War. Isn't that like basically treason? Could that not be punishable by death or at least some type of imprisonment?
Exactly.
And it's right there in the newspaper. So that's pretty. Like, why would this be featured in the newspaper, anyways? Right? I mean, so this is very interesting.
He's giving a legend. It's almost like they're giving him the thing to Raymond Shaw, the Medal of Honor. He didn't fight in any heroic battle, but he came back a hero, and he just accepted it. This is the sheep dipping process of for a very long program. Well, this is a 4-year program, but I don't know. There's stories like there's one guy I talked to, Ernst or whatever, who said that even George White, who is like a notorious like hardball or Cold Warrior FBI agent, knew Oswald when Oswald was in New York with his mother. Like even when he was an early teen. Like that is so creepy that he was talent spotted in high school, right around by the time when, like you're saying, you're hypnotized. For people who don't know, Oswald kind of moved around a lot. He was actually in New Orleans. His mom, like they found out, they just know so much. Like they're in around mafia people. The mom is around, and New Orleans is very sketchy. And his dad died young. I mean, a lot of these guys don't have fathers, or they have absent father figures. That's another trait between Sirhan, Oswald, Chapman. I don't know about Hinckley, but some of these guys, like, there's nobody around to give guidance to Lee. That makes him probably more suggestible.
And also, just one thing is, if look at that photograph, look at his facial expression. So one side he's smiling, one side he's frowning. Try to do that. Wow. I mean, it's not easy to do. It's like that gesture half, there's a Janus face, right? There's a bifurcation. I mean, look at that. One side is like, and the other side is a frown. I mean, and you're doing
result of the programming.
Bro, no, I mean, I can't do it. I am trying to.
They say this guy would sit in front of TVs and just zone out and watch TV. I mean, it is so bizarre. Like imagine just having a TV where you're just like lost in some kind of trance. Right. Like that's what he would do. And allegedly, I haven't confirmed this, but there is a legend that in his library books or his bookshelf was A Catcher in the Rye. Somebody has written that. Like that's a rumor. Anybody could verify that for me. Please send it to me.
So, like the father we don't know about. I mean, maybe it's erased. Maybe we're not supposed to know about that. That's occulted. What is this dude's bloodline, right? And same with Obama and stuff. Like he happened to be, in the same bloodline as like King Charles and George W. and all that. Like, maybe that this guy was born for this. There is breeding. The cult does create these people. I mean, you talk to like Nathan Reynolds or whatever. Nathan Reynolds specifically, I don't mean or whatever, right? His story, he was put in the military He was a generationally abused, trauma-based mind control, and he was used in the military. They programmed him to be a perfect soldier, and they would manipulate him to go and do what they wanted. They would, with the programming, to make him perfect, and he would never get tired or whatever because he, it'd switch a personality. Oh, all of a sudden, not tired anymore, or what? These type of things. Super soldiers, Delta Force, like MK Delta. People should look into that. I believe that's what this guy is. I think that there's more to him than we are allowed to know.
Yes, I think no question. I think that I think a lot of it's a fake legend. So that when JFK dies, I mean that this is part of the whole operation is that they're just bombarded with the thing that this guy is a communist sympathizer. So we had this legend. He worked for Fair Play for Cuba and all this stuff, but it's just a bunch of nonsense. Like he's hanging out with Bannister. Like that's the whole thing that they had to forestall is that connecting him to these other kind of Cold Warrior ballers who were supporting Cuba at the time. Bannister, Shaw, and Ferry. And that's what Garrison was really trying to do. And I think he proved it. They deny it, but the fact that he's around all those guys shows that he's not really just a right wing, he's not really a communist sympathizer in any way. But he had the legend for it. And it's really, I mean, we'll go into these slides. It's incredible. You have to talk about this as like money was no object with this guy. They had so many people surrounding him that it was like he was a project for about 5-10 years. This is a great picture. This is like one of the things about Dulles and mind control. So there's Dulles. This was the famous motif is like back in the day was to be close to a globe, to show this guy's really a world controller. Like you cannot underestimate what his nickname was, the Shark.
All the flat earthers are losing their shit right now.
Yeah. No. Just kidding. Good. Just don't send me emails, please.
No, I'm just saying that like
no, I'm talking to flat earthers that are out there right now. Please don't send me.
I just meant like associating Dulles with the round earth. Oh, he's evil. Look, like he's one of them like globe heads.
Yeah. But you'll see this with Hubbard did the same thing. He liked to be all close to globes. But this guy's involved in all kinds of operations, right? He's involved in operations to overthrow governments. That's the whole thing.
Well, that's
so that when they
globalism.
overthrew the government in November 11th, 1963, they've been doing it for 20 years, and he was involved very intimately in the attempt to kill Hitler and overthrow the Third Reich.
So, but it being a global project, I think that's why the significance of the globes with those individuals that like to get photographed next to the globe, it's like showing their allegiance to their hires, as opposed to nationalists.
Watch how many pictures you see of famous people close to globes and their hands on globes. Like there's a famous picture of Trump holding a globe in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that one was silly. It's like it's a glowing orb. The light comes from inside and he's got his hands on it.
That's bizarre.
And then if you look at like, the logos of companies and, the Sherwin-Williams has like the blood on the whole planet. And like, there's a lot of that involved in their symbolism.
The motif is there. This guy had a club foot and he also had gout. So you see of his right hand, he's got all kinds of gout stuff going. Like, if you figure out how evil and creepy this guy is, it's off the charts.
Yeah. And if I just to sorry to interrupt, but like it's just fascinating and you guys probably knew this already, but when I, on this other work I'm doing, I chanced across, the story of his son, Alan Macy Dulles, right? Who was injured, traumatic brain or head injury in Korea and woke up and said that I betrayed my country. I have betrayed my country. And he could not, even though he was, by all accounts, he was absolutely heroic and, took fire to save other soldiers. And as William and I were talking before the show, his own son was sort of the who's who of MK Ultra, right? Penfeld and on and on and on. We're all treating him, right? And this was his inspiration for this brain warfare, right? At the same time, you have neuroscience coming up and you have brain warfare, and they're both developing simultaneously, and directly interconnected, the scientific research. in fact, a lot of the earlier, like say Donald Hebb and these earlier neuroscience researchers posited the need for a control of humanity by the wise scientific class through the brain, because basically people are not able really, the brain is too powerful to leave in the control of the masses. So we have to devise means and methods to control this for everyone's benefit, right? So it was, coming from both sides, both the you can say kinetic, aggressive warfare, but even from the side of just creating a functioning society based on, say, Pavlovian principles. We talked about it before. So, anyways.
Remember, Dr. Yen Lo comes from the Pavlov Institute, right? So they're thinking on collective. It's interesting you mentioned Hebe. He's a lesser known name in this, but he's mentioned in this 2025 lawsuit. But these guys came out of World War II, so they're thinking on levels like, how do we forestall this from happening again? Just like you said, like, how do we manipulate society? He wrote an article titled "Science in Dachau's Shadow: Hebe, Beecher, and the Development of CIA Psychological Torture and Modern Medical Ethics." So he's mentioned in these articles and stuff like that. But Hebe is all over this, this most recent lawsuit. He was at McGill, and also Penfield was friends with Cameron too, by the way. I think he was actually an earlier influence on Cameron. Dr. Hebe was experimenting using soundproof cubicle 8x4 by 6 feet with an observation window so that researchers could monitor the subject inside. The cubicle contained a bed, a pillow, and an air conditioner. Students were made to wear translucent goggles to prevent visual stimulation and wore cardboard tubes from their elbow to past their fingertips. The students were remunerated with $20 a day and were permitted to terminate the experiment at any time. Despite the sizable $20 incentive to participate, at first, the subject that stayed the longest in the sensory deprivation chamber was 3 hours. So this guy's doing this stuff. Later on, another subject lasted 24 hours, and even more later on, subject managed to stay in the chamber for 6 days, some of which reported visual and auditory hallucinations, but most students quit after 2 or 3 days, and many refused to finish the experiment.
If you think about that, that's a forced dissociation. Like, it makes your brain separate from your body's physical, and that separation causes like a scary, like a fear that's like that we would all share. Like, oh my God, my body's gone. You know what I mean? But you can't consciously feel that or understand. It's really interesting how that's forced onto those people, and no wonder they couldn't survive it. They had to go after 3 hours.
And then that went into
1951.
And this went into whose research? Lilly followed up on this, right? John Lilly took this thread of the sensory deprivation as a physiologist, basically a neurophysician, and continued into culminating, saying, program and reprogramming the human biocomputer, right? And using sensory deprivation as a way to program and how to run types of programs within, then they're using a computer cybernetic model of the brain, like such as Noam Chomsky's linguistic model, right? And so in this sensory deprivation, what is a virtual reality? It's a sensory deprivation, is it not? And this goes into, sorry to keep jumping around, the brain in a vat, right? So the brain in a vat was, I forget, wasn't Penfield, I think, cited it, but it was a story or a play or whatever. The brain in a vat is where the brain is put in a vat and all external inputs are controlled externally. So you're just a brain in a vat. You no longer have any freedom, autonomy, anything. This was the ideal of the total control state. What is sensory deprivation? Brain in a vat, right? Kind of. It is. I mean,
it's like the Matrix.
And you can see it in like the common culture now. We have the Stranger Things, the little girl who was traumatized with the MK Ultra programming. In order to do her magic, she has to be submerged in water and, eyes blacked out so she can't see or feel.
Her name is 11.
Yeah, dude. Yes, thank you for saying that. Exactly. Yeah. And the altered states that Ken Russell film, that
Patty Chayefsky movie, he wrote it.
Very good. Yeah.
Supposed to be based on Lily, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, there was a scientist that wanted to like study the primal brain, and I don't know. He turned into an ape. Like,
But Lily did freak out. I mean, Lily. Just an
the
anecdote.
dolphins is crazy enough. Just go ahead. Yeah.
My brother he had John Lilly come and give the commencement address at his college. He was like weighing and stuff, and this is back, I was 90s. So Lilly came, and he was in a wheelchair, and he has a ketamine drip. He's on ketamine 24 hours a day, and he was talking about aliens, and I mean, he was way out there. I mean, just like way out there, right? But I mean, Lilly he did sort of, I mean, altered states maybe obviously did not become an ape, but he took his own research a little too far. So that's what I mean, again, I think he was the influence for that film.
Yeah. And some of the experiencers of SRA and trauma-based mind control were put in dolphin tanks with dolphins. Like, I've read that, I've seen that. That is one of the phenomena. So like the Lilly knowledge is being used in the programming of these monarch children, to create the total slaves that are undetectable when they become adults. And one more thing before we leave off this picture, his gnarled hand reminds me of that of a magician. Like, if you look at Hillary Clinton's first mate there, that guy he held up his hands and they were all messed up and gnarly. They substitute their hands for other parts of their body in certain dark rituals. Like, if they're gonna, some rituals call for you to cut off your member, your reproductive organ, but you can substitute that with your finger if you want, and still get the same effect in the magic ritual. It's weird, but people can look into that. They would substitute their hands and mutilate their hands, so that all the magicians also can see. It's visible on the evidence of your magic is like worn on your hands too. So I don't know if that has anything, but it looks familiar to like a gnarly magician.
This is kind of the infamous picture of them together. I think that's Bissell in the background. These guys are both involved in getting off in Kennedy, but I have a video of it. This is where Kennedy kind of blows off Dulles. Dulles was let go after the Bay of Pigs, 1961. And that's probably when the engine behind the scenes started kind of grinding to get rid of Kennedy. But he's an essential Dulles is it. And then Tim Gardner Project, that little Kennedy, he thought he was a god, says Alan Dulles. So they really didn't like Kennedy. There was something, they wanted to blow his head off. Like, he was not healthy, and they could have poisoned him or done something. And they decided that, like, they set this whole thing up to blow his head off. Like, they really wanted a public display of violence.
Do you think it's because he's a Kennedy and Joe Kennedy forced his way into the elite by being a mobster who was running alcohol? I mean, I
think there's a lot of things going on why they didn't like Kennedy. He was very racially sympathetic. Right. So he and his brother believed in kind of civil rights. These guys didn't. The old WASP families. He's also Irish Catholic. And so that's a rival. And I think that there had to have been personal things between them where he was blowing people off. There was the famous Northwoods episodes where he's like shunning these guys. They're all around him, and this guy believes in civil rights and all that stuff like that. And I think they think it was personal. I think they really personally disliked the Kennedys. LeMay, Lansdale, the ugly American, Willoughby. So it's not. I don't have that kind of thing about the CIA assassination, which can be called CIA tunnel vision. Like, I think that one of the key players is Dulles, but they all wanted him dead. Luce and the Rockefellers. And I think it was a competitive thing. Yeah, the mob. Like, he kind of turned his back on his class. Like, the mob fixed the election for this guy in West Virginia and Chicago, and then his brother starts prosecuting him and is farting around with Marcello and sending him off to Guatemala. Like, these are personal things. They pissed everybody off.
That's why his brother didn't get away either.
Right.
Also shot in the head. Like,
it's all personal. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you could poison these guys. We can go back to like Livia, right? So the character of Eleanor is Eleanor, the mother of Raymond Shaw. She's based on Livia, who poisoned all the enemies of Augustus or whatever. Like she never killed, she never did anything, but all the people around him died to her benefit. She was really a kingmaker. So yeah, so I think it's like a really personal thing between these guys.
But just as maybe it's more broad based, but in a certain way, people talk about a coup, but you can see this sort of infiltration through the system, right? If you go even look at MK Ultra, you look at that moving into all the stuff that happened, say at Stanford Research Institute, the Manson murders, to all these cults that came about in the 70s, Jim Jones, to all this other stuff. You can see these forces kind of marticulating or percolating through the system and like kind of spreading out, right? In a certain way. It's not that the whole top of the government, everyone is involved, right? But is it to what extent do you think, William, that the killing of Kennedy is also a killing of the American spirit or the American people, right? And it was maybe a coup, right? Would you call this a consortium? You could say internationalist factions, or would you say it's a consortium, or is it more monolithic?
I would say it's kind of a consortium. I think a lot of people wanted him gone, and they moved together. I think it was part of this kind of New World Order ethos. Like we are taking over other parts of the world, and we're not going to have somebody have sympathy for Cuba. Like Cuba was on their agenda, and this guy stymied this. And they had already they had successfully overthrown Iran, Guatemala. I think Arbenz was Guatemala, tankering around in Indonesia. And they killed the guy in the Congo recently and put him in a 55-gallon drum. So these are ruthless, like money. They're really more efficient than any Nazi in history. So I think that he was they killed DM, I think, in South Vietnam too, like right before Kennedy was killed. So I think it was part of this kind of, and if you look at Dulles, he didn't believe in the kind of the egalitarian democratic means. He believed that a small group of like scientific elites should run everything. That was kind of his outlook. And so I think that's why the CIA was a perfect place for him. And the CIA creation was that outlying thing, is that we're going to run stuff. They literally ran everything behind the scenes. Like they turned the Congress into kind of a lapdog, and they controlled and blackmail everybody. And what they got away with is incredible. Like you can see their quest for power. So I think that Kennedy was naive and young and 42, and he kind of relied on his kind of charm. And he's up against a shark. Like this guy's literally a shark who tried to kill Hitler. Like he's involved in that. You'll see this in the slides. I think it's an important element of Dulles that's overlooked, is his wartime stuff. But we'll see connections to this whole concept of handling that goes through the Manchurian Candidate. It's reflected in fact and fiction, not fiction. One of the interesting things is that he literally puts out and publishes his work, The Craft of Intelligence, in I think late 62 or 63.
The craft.
Right? Yeah. So he's seeing it as a craft. That's an interesting word, right? Because that's what they call Masonry, is the craft, right?
It's magic, is craft, is witchcraft, right?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, the craft. And then like a whistleblower, Marchetti, who knew a lot. He wasn't one of the, tried to kill him. It's interesting because some CIA whistleblowers have to leave the country, but for some reason, Marchetti kind of stayed in the U.S., but he wrote a book in opposition to this called The Cult of Intelligence, and it's worth reading. It's a whole nother show, but The Cult of Intelligence is really something else. It's a direct kind of snub at Dulles, I think. Dulles, somebody found his records for November 22nd. He's weekend at the farm. The farm is a nickname for CIA headquarters. So he literally is managing the weekend. He's managing the whole event. I think that he was in this kind of control room. That's according to David Talbot. He wrote The Devil's Chessboard. That he's in some kind of control figure at CIA headquarters from the day of the assassination through the shooting of Oswald and Tippit. And then they were all buried, like I think right away. Like they were all buried within, 2 or 3 days. Kennedy. And it's almost like it's this huge staged event. So you almost can't even see the Kennedy assassination and then nothing happened. It's like they died. There's national mourning. collective trauma, right? Everybody's watching, glued on TV. That's the only way you see it. They're burying Kennedy. Little kid, John Jr.'s saluting, and they make sure that Tippit and Oswald are both in the grave. All Tippit, Oswald, and JFK are all in the grave in freaking 3 days. With Dulles, who's already been let go. This is an interesting theme about the CIA, is that these guys will be fired or say they quit, and they'll still be at CIA headquarters. Like, it's the same thing with the blonde ghost. Like, I forgot his name, but I did a show with Ship, who he was a CIA agent, and he said, like, he went back to the CIA, and the guy supposedly quit, but 5 years later, he's walking around in, like, executive offices, farting around. Like, what's going on? So they get away with all kinds of stuff. There's Cameron, right? So we talked about Cameron Smart. This is a monster. This is a literal monster. Alan Dulles, the OSS and Nazi war crimes. This guy's tied in with all kinds of IG Farben. He's a white shoe lawyer for Sullivan and Cromwell. He's handling all the Rockefeller stuff. Like, he's tied to the Rockefeller family in not good ways. But it's interesting in this Standard shipped out oil to the Nazis during the war, but at the same time provided officers in Spain and Switzerland to watch Axis oil shipments. Alan Dulles was the mastermind of the whole dirty business. It's an interesting word usage here. But I mean, then the whole story of what Alan Dulles and his brother were doing at the Treaty of Versailles, which really, like, the World War I and World War II have been defined as like a 30-year war, and I think that's a correct way to look at it. They're not separate wars. The war stopped, and then the foundations of World War II were laid right at the beginning at Versailles, because Hitler was always bitching about Versailles.
Well, no, I mean, Versailles was set up, right? Essentially, Germany had agreed to the treaty and had basically won, if you technically, but it was set up in such a way the entire economic system of Germany completely collapsed, right? You have this Weimar absolute corruption, incredible debased sexuality. The first transgender operations are performed. It's just the whole country is turning into just debased and just incredible. People are starving to death and, everything. So it's what is a better environment to give rise to the response, right? And so
reaction solution.
Yeah, I mean, certainly though, I would say at least some of that, some of Hitler's, economic advisors, right? This whole sort of it's the social credit system where, the economy is not debt based. It's based on the productive output of labor, created a lot of prosperity as well in Germany. So Germany became a very wealthy nation almost out of nowhere. So it's quite fascinating that in a sense it was one. You can see the destruction of the Ottoman Empire, this whole process going from the early 20th century until you could even include the whole Cold War, because in a sense that's an outgrowth of World War II, right? I mean, and the whole Soviet takeover was an outgrowth of World War II. East Berlin, everything, because it wasn't for World War II, it wouldn't have happened, right?
And also the industrialization of Japan and that whole thing, like the way that a Barbie doll is produced in like 40 different factories in Japan, and that's what like keeps and it ballooned their economy to be like number 2 in the world, and they were rivaling our cars, and they were rivaling German photography equipment. I mean, their cameras were almost as good as Zeiss cameras, and it shows the pinnacle of the industrial what can happen after it was completely destroyed. Burned to crisp, and then they built it up into this new thing, the new world system of everything is connected, and everybody's, all these factories from all over the world are all putting into one package to give you Barbie or whatever crap, plastic stuff,
It's incredible. It's incredible. I think that John Foster Dulles was right there behind Wilson crafting the 14 points. So these guys are all involved, all in this industry, and their angle too. So everybody's angling Germany's a rival, and it's just incredible. And there are the Dulles brothers right there. It's interesting that Kinzer wrote a book called The Brothers about those two, and then wrote about Gottlieb. He's basically Dulles's witch or whatever. Like he thought he was an alchemist. Which is, so you see these.
Who's
these
the guy at the
glimmers.
bottom? Who's that?
That's David Ferry.
Ooh, okay. Creepy looking guy, man.
Yeah. So that's a hypnotist. So Oswald is in the hands of a hypnotist, at least there, and Shaw. But this is kind of like JFK Files is operated by one of the best JFK assassination scholars out there, Jefferson Morley, who I've had on my show like 3 or 4 times. But just little things like this, you can see that these guys are connected, and it's all about Cuba. Ferry was a hypnotist. He liked teen boys. He was always kind of surrounded with teen boys. That was his jam. He got kicked out of the Catholic Church, and then he became kind of they call him itinerant priest or itinerant monks. Like he got this, like if you're
he
Catholic,
was too sick for the Catholics. They even them kicked him out. Wow.
You got to be sick to get kicked out because there's a lot. It's endemic in that institution.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why people go into it. Like, how do I get access to boys?
Right.
Boy Scouts, Catholic Church, elementary school teacher.
Right.
You know,
all the stuff that Kinsey worked for too. You know, he was working for Boy Scouts and hanging out with little teenage boys.
They said the guy who started Boy Scouts was a freaking pederast. That's
exactly.
what he did. Like that was the point.
Yeah.
So that's why Ferry was in CAP, right? So he's in civilian air patrol because he gets access to what he likes as young boys. And during the he traveled with young boys on the day of the assassination. The rumor is, I mean, they can never prove this, but he disappeared after the assassination was the 22nd, and he was in court on that Friday with it's like he worked under Marcello, who was the mafia boss in New Orleans, and Bannister was in court. Bannister went to court for him. He got in trouble. He's a very accomplished pilot, and they think he might have been involved in the U-2 spy plane stuff, and that's why he got alopecia. So if you see that, all that hair on his face is totally fake. He was totally bald. But if you go up into high stratospheric conditions and stuff, it actually will constrict like the growth of your hair. And like it gives you skin problems, and they think that he might have all been on these U-2 flights like Gary Powers, and that's what Oswald was involved with when he was at Aksugi. He was a radar operator, and they were flying U-2 flights over top secret flights over Russia. But these are the important ties. If you watch Oliver Stone's JFK, there's like scenes of these guys together. And there's famous scenes of them plotting the assassination, and they're partying together, and they're both gay, and they're like dressed up in like the outfits they have for what's the thing they do before Lent? It's Mardi Gras outfits, and they're sniffing poppers and stuff in gay bars and stuff like that. So you can watch these two guys are together in there, but.
I mean, it's more of that Epstein blackmail crap. Like, how do they, and the government, like people work for the government to have access to young boys too. You know what I mean? Like, look at Denny Hastert and all that crap. Like, it's, it's part of the whole control system. And just look at Epstein, and he's just one piece of it.
It's just one piece.
Yeah.
They've been doing it all. Roy Cohn, right? Who's the bassist for Eleanor. Isildur, whatever her name is, in the book and movie is based on Cohn, right? So Cohn's doing it. There was that one guy, Greg Spence, who ended up dead in a hotel. If they want to kill you, one of the worst places to be is actually in a hotel room, because they can just get a hotel across from you. It's a terrible place to be. Like, you want to be somewhere else, because there's so many suspicious deaths in hotel rooms. They know how to pop those doors open, and nobody's there. Like, there's so many people coming and going. Like, what just another hotel guest? What's up?
What about that LA or the Las Vegas shooting that happened from a hotel, right?
Yeah.
How'd that window get open, and how'd that dude get triggered, and what was that all about? The weapons, being smuggled and all this. Like, there's a lot going on. And
once you realize they can do this to people and really change their personality and put them into altars and weird things, you have to go back and re-look at all of history from the time of the Manchurian Candidate. And I think I said that. Like, there's a time before a Manchurian and after. We're in the post-Manchurian Candidate era, where like you don't know why some of these people flipped. they had that one kid, Gendron, who like got the inspiration to drive all the way to Buffalo, New York to kill a bunch of black people. And he had an FBI handler. He was killing cats, much like that one guy from he was from Canada, ended up in Europe, and then the other dude, Scarlet Blake, who was a cat killer. But Kendron, that's may be how they're being handled to actually. It's not even believable, but they're being trained to like lose empathy through a handler without ever having to go into a hospital, just through the internet. You know what I mean? So Gandron escalated his violence from killing a cat to like blowing away 12 people.
And like the order of 9 angles, right?
There's a direct connection between Gandron and ONA.
Yeah, which is
and this other guy, Nikita Kasap, who killed his parents, and a lot of similarities between him and this most recent shooter in Robert Westman in Minneapolis, because they had some fixation with Cyrillic and Russian, and there's a lot of O9A stuff going out of there too. You know, Russians have a real problem. I actually was on this huge like Russian station talking about the O9A. The guy had like 5 million subscribers, but because the Russians have a problem. They may O9A, maybe, you know, it's just a front for intel people or something.
No, there's a big issue with Satanism in Russia and infiltration, and so I mean things have been banned, right? The government has had to step in because it's even Ukraine and also, but these organizations of various occult satanic groups, ONA is just one of many, so it's a major thing, right? And they're getting funding, money, you know, recruitment, etc. So it is an issue, and it's definitely a tactic that's being deployed.
I think you're right. It is
one of the important things to note about O9A is that it brings out the inner Satan in everybody. It's a process of initiation into becoming a satanic person, you know, becoming one who's a psychopath. And in that whole process, you know, there is human sacrifice, there is, you know, these rituals that they do, and it is to create a new aeon of chaos in the world, just like what the Black Awakening was going to do. You know, these forces are all looking to do the same thing. It seems like they all have the same plans.
It's a form of behavior modification, right? The initiatory process
exactly.
And are you tough enough to actually totally change your behavior modification where you can select an offer and kill them and get away with it? You know, like,
right?
It's crazy. They have people like proven that's what they did. This guy Daniel Hussein in London.
And don't they also encourage you to join a radical, violent group like Nazi group?
Insight Roll, yeah.
Insight Roll, right? People should look into your shows that you've done, William, about that order.
It's still the Global Death Cult, still my number one selling book of all those.
Yes,
other
the book too,
because it's happening. Because like 764 is an offshoot, and all these weird calm things and abuse and girls being abused, like, and CSAM, it's all tied back in an outgrowth of this kind of stuff that came out of O9A. Anyway, he's associated with Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw's rumored, I haven't proven this, Knight of Malta, much like Dulles, much like Galen and Himmler. All these guys are Knights of Malta. This guy's a really incredible guy. They didn't go into detail about Shaw, but his wartime history is legit. He literally worked under a general named Thrasher, who was responsible for the entirety of southern UK. He was an aide-de-camp. This guy's a very high level mate. I think he ended up with a major, the rank of major, hanging around with like a know-nothing bum like Oswald, right? He was a traitor who left the country and went to Russia. This is also Jefferson Morley stuff. 1959 state cable. Oswald, while in Moscow to renounce his citizenship, met several times the CIA representative at the U.S. Embassy. So like, it's fake. And look at his face. If you look at, I don't know what it is. I haven't figured it out yet, but these guys have this kind of weird blank stare, and Oswald has that too. And we'll get into the darker rumors about this guy because it ties into Jose Delgado. And like Jose Delgado literally said, have you ever implanted a human being with electrodes? And Delgado said, experiments were done. He never specified what experiments.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen the thing where, I mean, they had a remote controlled bull, right? Delgado, right? And they also had this cat. They had different animals they were running, and some of this stuff was done quite early. And then Delgado moved from
at Yale. He was doing it at Yale.
Yeah, but he shifted from invasive to psychopharmacology and neural entrainment through frequency and energetic stuff. So, because it's much easier to integrate that process and doing the brain implant. But yeah, Delgado is very important. But he was so anyways, but there's a lot of people that have come out about having like types of implants in their brain or their teeth and this and that. I don't know if you've looked into that. That has much connection.
We're getting there. Okay, guys. Timothy McVeigh said he was implanted, and it's later on in these. I mean, we're gonna have to do a part 3 or 4 or 5 and a 6.
That'd be great. I look forward to those.
We get to Kerry Thornley, Discordian, who knew you can't even believe this stuff. Let me see if I can bring this up. Delgado, I have Delgado stuff.
In 12.
Delgado's important. Delgado's very important.
Everybody,
can you guys hear Can you hear the audio on this?
No.
Okay.
Everybody should watch the video of the bull being mind controlled.
I'm about to play it. If I can.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring it up.
Yeah, and those hardwired mind control chips are getting back in vogue now that Elon's around.
I mean, if you saw this technology, you would never get a Neuralink.
No, thank you.
Like you think it's one way. You're on crack. What down the crack like?
Can you hear the audio? You got to get it tuned up every 2 years.
Can you hear the audio now?
Control research is not new.
Yes.
A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients.
Did you hear that last bit about the Soviet Union? That's where Oswald was. Where did Oswald get? I think he had tonsillitis or something. He went to a Minsk hospital. So, this gets really dark. It gets really dark. Really incredible.
It's all connected. It's not, when you start down the rabbit holes of understanding it, you're looking and like, wow, oh, that's weird. Oh, that's weird. Wow. And the more you learn, the more you see the tapestry, all the threads connect. And
they could never divulge what they did to some of these guys because it goes back to that final statement of Eleanor talking to her son. It was the rape of the soul, man. These people had their souls raped. And a lot of people did. That's what L. Ron Hubbard's. We can do another show about MK Ultra and Scientology because that'll peel the skin off your face. Like you will not want to get 100 feet within a Scientology center if you know how bad it is. A lot of this stuff bled into Scientology.
We should do a show, and we should bring up what you sent me on the email there about the Alice in Wonderland programming used in Scientology.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
CIA. And they both use the same programming. That's what's crazy. That's what's crazy. Conflicts persist about Oswald's status. State Department records show that Oswald had several meetings with the CIA representative in the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. He's not a defector. This is baloney. It's just a cover. He's at Atsugi from 57 to 58. A facility where MK Ultra experiments were actively conducted. Sidney Gottlieb was documented to be present at Atsugi during this time period. And these are in the files. This is absolutely incredible. And there's even rumors about E. Howard Hunt, which we'll get into, who is the domestic operation spy and an occultist. The guy wrote freaking occult novels under his assumed name, and was around here, and also is tied to James Earl Ray. No question.
So they're always occultists. Also, like, it's funny.
They almost have to be.
Yeah,
they almost have, just like you said. That's how they get up into the system in the pyramid.
That's right. Like exactly why like Jimmy Savile is hanging out with the King of England or whatever, you know. Like, why would they be friends? You know. Like,
well, I mean, the thing is about Jimmy Savile.
Knight of Malta.
Exactly. Yes.
Jimmy Savile had the ear. Prince Charles is writing to Jimmy Savile for advice on geopolitical speeches. I mean, this guy was connected from the very top. Margaret Thatcher, they're coming to him for advice, and yet it's not like that hard to think that guy's creepy.
Son, man, he was born on Halloween, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like he was created in for these black magic magicians who were making bloodlines.
It's a master warlock, dude. He was like the top of the top.
Buried at 45 degrees. Like, whoa, dude.
And you know, one thing is that some people have come forward that were abused, you know, especially if there was that girls' school, right? That he was associated with. I mean, a girls' school, like the juvenile home for female juvenile delinquents, describing being taken down, and he's sitting on a throne, you know, with pentagrams and sacrificing. He's running satanic rituals with famous people that are recognizable, even members of parliament, other celebrities, etc., all there. And he's there as his master warlock robe. And then the one show he's on, he's wearing all the eyes. He has all these like eyes, and these are eyes he stole from either dead people or people he stole from hospitals. These are actual fake eyes that he had stolen from people.
And that's a magic trick. That's the evil eye, which wards off others looking at you for being able to. It's a way of occulting your own bad, evil things that you're doing. You know,
Alex DeLarge had that eyeball ring, by the way. He had that too in Clockwork Orange, right? Didn't he have that eyeball ring?
Yeah.
And wait, that Burgess book, right? Anthony Burgess is connected also with intelligence.
I think that's Alex DeLarge is the main character, right?
But
yeah, that's from Clockwork Orange. Yes, it is. And ultraviolence.
The Clockwork Orange is actually a model of using countercultural forces and potencies to unwind society, right? Clockwork Orange is actually put as a model, right? It's out there as literature, but it's actually an implementable model that was implemented, actually.
Right.
You know,
if you listen in the film, the Frederick, the guy that owns the prison or whatever, he's talking about, oh yeah, we got to make room for all the political prisoners we're going to have pretty soon. So this will get rid of all these other, you know, common criminals, the Ludovico method of MK Ultra, like, you know, like showing the stimulus of the ultra violence, and then
plus the censor. They literally did have those hats where they would censor your brain back then. They freaking put like Kaczynski through that for 3 years.
Yeah, whoa.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, the real history of America just blow your mind, because if you remember, I don't know, we did the show on Catchers in the Rye, right? That the guy Bremer was inspired by Alec DeLarge and Clockwork Orange. Like, he was actually going to go shoot freaking Wallace because he I want to be just like him. So this operational element of these so-called fictional things is
I think Kubrick knew that, and that's why he pulled it from the theaters in London. He's like, I don't want to add to the violence of society, and so he removed it. And like, I don't care about making money. America had it running still, but where Kubrick lived, he didn't want that ultra violence around outside, like the programming of the society. Like, I think he knew what was going on.
Garrison subpoenaed a lot of interesting people, including Ferry, but another one was this guy, Kerry Thornley, who was literally at Sugi with Oswald and followed him and literally wrote a novel, was writing a novel, and wrote a autobiography, which is very interesting. He's clearly been tampered with through LSD or something. Like, he's not very reliable, but he wrote a book called Oswald about his life with Oswald. Like, it is so weird that he is actually around Oswald. It just blows your mind. And part of the Garrison investigation. Right? Ferry never came under the scrutiny. He was investigated by the FBI after the assassination of JFK, and then he just kind of walked around for 4 years until Garrison started investigating him, and then he died suspiciously, like right before he's supposed to testify. Somebody either karate chopped him in the back of his head or something, hit him with a bat. And then, of course, like the corrupt medical examiner, just suspicious death. It's like Chinatown, dude. When you see like how many corrupt things have happened with smiley face killers, you realize these medical examiners are either on the take or they're installed there by a political party, or they have intel connections where they can just make stuff up. Yeah, undetermined, not really sure. It's like Chinatown. Go watch Chinatown with the medical examiner. Anyway, this is a really interesting guy, Thornley. This is in Joe Anides was supposedly around Oswald. This is like a heavy-duty CIA operative. These are like really interesting things about these guys' quest for power. I think I mentioned earlier the 201 file about Oswald was held by Angleton. So he was basically kind of like the repository at the agency for all Oswald info, according to Jefferson Morley. This is from Tim Gardner Project. This is David Talbot about James Angleton. This is what he confessed was this. He had not been serving God after all when he followed Allen Dulles, right? Dulles. He had been on a satanic quest. These were some of James Jason Angleton's dying words. He delivered them between fits of calamitous coughing, lung-scraping seizures that still failed to break him of his cigarette habit, and soothing sips of tea. Quote, fundamentally, the founding fathers of U.S. intelligence were liars, unquote. Angleton told Trento in an emotionless voice, the better you lied and the more you betrayed, the more likely you would be promoted. Outside of their duplicity, the only thing they had in common was a desire for absolute power. I did things that, in looking back on my life, I regret, but I was part of it and loved being in it, unquote. He invoked the names of the high eminences who had run the CIA in his day, Dulles, Helms, Wisner. These men were the grand masters. These are interesting terms. These are all like Masonic terms. He said, if you were in a room with them, you were in a room full of people that you had to believe would deservedly end up in hell. Angleton took another slow sip from his steaming cup. I guess I will see them there soon.
Wow, that is poetic, man. Holy crap. Do you want to end it on that? I mean, like, I don't think we can get better than that. They are satanic. They will end up in hell. Like, holy...
Dude, I actually thought I was out there. I thought I had 10 hours of material. I think I have like 30 hours.
Like, we're just going.
If you're talking with us, we're going to keep talking about all this.
We probably did 30 years now.
Yeah, right.
I'll try to get the time right. It was my apology. I'm
not worried about that. I'm just saying that was like kind of a climax of this. Like, really, this is perfect the way what you
guys.
Just
this
said
is slide 31. I think I have 100 slides on this, and we didn't even finish my old slides. Anyway, we encapsulated so much good material in here. But thanks for having me on your show. It's always great to talk with you guys. Yes. You guys are so well informed too.
Yeah, that's great. It's an honor for you to bring this information to us here, and my listeners love you and what you're doing, and tell them maybe first time listeners, maybe tell them where they can find you and your work, please.
Podcast is William Ramsey Investigates. You can find it on Spreaker, Spotify, and then my website is williamramseyinvestigates.com. You can see some of my writings and stuff like that. You can buy books there. I have 5 books. You can buy them on Amazon, and then my 5 documentaries and stuff I post without advertisements are at my Patreon. It's a legacy place. I probably wouldn't be on Patreon, but I set it up so long ago. I've stuck there, and you can see my 5 documentaries. You just pay $5 a month, and you can watch them all. So a lot of commentary too. I get away with. I can comment there without lurkers and things like that. So I post a lot of stuff there that I wouldn't post on my social media.
Yeah, great. Well, no, it's always a pleasure just doing this and going through all these interconnections that again that they're still valid, right? We're still witnessing this. It's not like this stuff is unwound, and this historical basis is a lot. It gives you a much more direct. When you look at the foundation of something, you have a much better understanding as opposed to all the outgrowths of complexity, right, that are layered on it. So the modeling, and so And Sean, again, thank you. And my podcast on Spotify, The Resonant State. You can find me on YouTube. Not this show though, because you can't talk about Manchurian Candidate movie or the book,
Right.
and it's a violation of whatever. So, but and I just started a Patreon too, so check that out. But hopefully we will continue, because this is it's a great way to tie a lot of things together, and something that certain we have to watch out for this collective amnesia, right, of our culture. We've really reached a point of collective amnesia where stuff happens and it's just gone, right? Even 9/11 is almost forgotten.
What
right?
happened to COVID? What happened to COVID?
What happened to COVID? I mean, what happened 9/11?
Get over it, man. They got us.
No, I mean, it's like, but certain things, they're in your face every day. You're right. There's certain historical events that you're not going to walk away from, and you'll be reminded of them in perpetuity, right? But certain things are not. And so, and one last thing is that, the JFK thing, again, was just connected with so many different aspects of, you could describe it sort of this force multipliers, right? So by entering this, you have a very stable society, 63, 64. I mean, America is still 1950s, right? It's 1950s. And you've created this destabilization. From there, you interject the counterculture. There, you interject all kinds of different things, radical movements. And that's what Ken Kesey, he said his inspiration for the Merry Pranksters and driving across the country distributing LSD was, guess what? Kennedy assassination. Right. That was his driving, motivating force. I'm doing this because of the Kennedy assassination, because America has been broken and we can't go back to what we were. I have to show a new way, but still, and he would wear American flags and everything, as he was dosing these, these hapless fools with Ken Babbs, another military guy with advanced electronic warfare knowledge, who was on the bus too, but there you go.
Gravy was always in the American flag, and the pig farm, all those whole thing.
Direct ties to MK Ultra experiments and Bateson. You mentioned the Macy conferences. You wouldn't believe it. He literally ran experiments at the Menlo Park VA where Kesey worked.
And that's where
you're muted, Hans.
Yeah, and now it wouldn't be spoilers, but that's one thing I've been looking into is that Bateson was the handler, right? Bateson was the handler of Ken Kesey. He was, and also at the Palo Alto, the institute. Also, sorry, he developed his theory of what schismogenesis. Actually, that started in World War II when he was doing black anthropology. So another one of his proteges. So Ken Kesey was his protege, as was Alan Watts. Alan Watts. Sorry, they're both proteges of Aldous Huxley. So Bateson is connected with Aldous Huxley, and then that to Ken Kesey, and then you find Bateson again, and then this. Not only that, the divide itself, Artie Lang, sanity is insanity. All this was being researched and pushed at the same time as So anyways, these guys are all connected. But I mean, Bateson, one of the things about Bateson, you look at his actual published work, it's like, why is this guy even famous? It's just crap. But he was running the on-the-ground operational stuff. Again, weaponized anthropology, schismogenesis, creating societal fractures, right? And then the double bind theory. And double bind was also developed at the same time with his research group while they were doing LSD experimentation. So anyways, that's
double bind is a way to break somebody down. You give them contradictory things. It's almost like what they do in the media now, where you just give them contradictory and they just give up. They just like, I don't even know what the truth is. I've seen it during COVID.
Induced helplessness.
Yeah, right? They induce helplessness through that. And they just stop thinking. They don't even know. One of the things is that Bateson was talking about was covert manipulation. So what's clever about the double bind experiment, it's not like, hey, I'm going to put you under mind control and adjust your behavior. They're using techniques where you won't even know what's happening to you. That's how sinister it is.
And Bateson, Erickson, NLP. He was a big influence on NLP, right? NLP comes right out of there, California. same people visiting us out there, etc. I've got my my inspector here from the insurance company, so I better bounce. But I will thank you guys so much.
Guys, thank you. Great to talk with you. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me back.
Thank
Really
you both
appreciate it.
again.
All right, peace,
It's an
peace,
honor.
everybody.
Cheers.
Until next
Bye-bye.
time.
Awesome.
Until next time.